All right, let's jump into another deep dive. This time, we're checking out a comedy podcast called The Giggle Factory.
Oh,
Specifically, their first episode ever. Socks, snails, and suspicious sandwiches.
oh, wow. Right back to the beginning.
Yeah, and you'll meet the hosts, Chuck and Mabel. They've got these great segments like News You Can't Use and Pet Corner.
I'm ready to laugh.
Me too. And right off the bat, you see how different Chuck and Mabel are?
Yeah.
Chuck's got this dry, kind of sarcastic humor.
Yeah.
While Mabel is super bubbly and energetic, it's like a classic comedy duo.
It's like they knew that contrast would work perfectly.
Right, like they planned it that way.
Exactly. And it sets up that fun, casual dynamic, like two friends just messing around.
Totally. And it feeds right into their first segment, News You Can't Use. They take real news headlines and make them funny.
Right, right.
Like this one about a town that re-elected their mayor, who's a golden retriever, for a second term.
Wait, a dog mayor?
A dog mayor.
Is that even legal?
Probably not. But that's what makes it so funny. You don't expect to hear about a dog running a town.
It's that surprise, mixing something serious like government with something totally absurd so we laugh.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. But why this particular headline? They could have chosen anything.
Well, everybody loves dogs, right? And it's not just a dog mayor, it's his second term, like a dynasty,
Oh, I get it.
There you
They're
go,
making
Florence.
fun of political dynasties, but with a dog.
Exactly. Very clever. Then they go to another headline about a guy who went to a yoga class,
Mm-hmm.
but he thought it was a silent auction, so he tried to buy the lotus position.
That is. Wow.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
That's Chuck's delivery for you. He builds up the story so slowly, and then bam, the punchline hits you.
And it's totally unexpected.
Right. The timing is perfect.
Though it's not just about the joke itself, it's how they tell it.
Absolutely. It's like that slow climb on a roller coaster before the big drop. They build the tension, then release it with laughter.
It's making me think differently about how much work goes into being funny.
Oh, yeah, there's a real craft to it. Okay, so then we get to Pet Corner.
Yeah, where listeners send in stories about their pets being crazy.
Right. One was about a cat that started mimicking its owner during Zoom meetings,
Oh, no.
even muting the owner and trying to buy catnip online.
That's just not possible, right?
Probably exaggerated, but it's funny because so many people work from home now. We've all had those Zoom interruptions.
So true. And then there was the parrot that played Despacito at 3 a.m. every morning.
Maybe not a true story, but pets do weird stuff. We recognize our own pets in these stories, so we laugh.
I do wonder why we find it so funny when animals act human, though.
I think it's because we see ourselves in them. They're like reflections of our own weird habits.
And it's surprising. We don't expect them to act that way.
Right, it catches us off guard. And then we get to Would You Rather? This one was a doozy. Mabel asks Chuck if he'd rather fight a duck the size of a horse
Hold on, a duck?
or 100 horses the size of ducks.
How do you even answer that?
It's all about the absurdity. But the best part is Chuck's reasoning. He'd rather fight the giant duck because he doesn't want to deal with the judgment of 100 tiny horses.
He's worried about judgment from tiny horses. That's amazing.
That's Chuck. And, we've all felt self-conscious like that, even if it's a totally ridiculous situation.
Yeah, I guess so. We laugh because we recognize that insecurity in ourselves, even if we don't want to admit it.
Exactly. And that's good comedy, letting us confront those feelings in a funny way. It's like saying, it's okay to feel this way. Let's laugh about it together.
I like that. They give us permission to embrace the absurd.
Exactly. Tiny horses and all.
Tiny horses and all. So it's more than just random funny bits, right? There's a deeper layer to it.
Oh, definitely. We've only scratched the surface here.
There's definitely more to the Giggle Factory than meets the eye.
Oh, for sure.
It's not just random jokes. It feels structured, like they're building something.
Right. It's like they've got this solid foundation with their personalities.
Yeah.
And the segments are like the walls holding it all together.
Right.
And then those little details, the running gags and sound effects, they're like the decorations that make it feel homey.
Okay, I see that. So it's more than just a bunch of jokes. It's a whole experience.
Exactly. Take that bit where Mabel keeps stealing Chuck's snacks.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It's simple, but it works because it plays into their dynamic. Mabel as the mischievous one, Chuck as the exasperated straight man.
It's a classic comedy duo thing, right?
Yeah.
But wouldn't that get old after a while? I mean, how many times can she take his food?
That's where the timing and delivery come in. It's not just about repeating the same gag, it's about how they do it.
Really, right.
The little variations, the witty back and forth, that's what keeps it fresh.
So they keep finding new ways to make it funny.
Exactly. And speaking of delivery, those sound effects are wild. The gasps, the parrot squawking Despacito, it's a lot.
Yeah, it is. It's like they're trying to emphasize every joke.
That's what they're doing. It's like punctuation, highlighting the funny parts.
Oh, that's interesting. So they make sure the listener knows when to laugh.
Right. They create this whole immersive world pulling you into the joke.
So you're not just listening, you're part of it.
That's the goal. And what about the blooper reel at the end? Remember where Mabel's hand got stuck to the microphone?
Oh, yeah, that was pretty funny. Seemed like a genuine mistake.
Bloopers are great because they break the fourth wall.
Yeah.
They show that they're human. They mess up too. It makes them relatable.
So it's like saying, we're not perfect and we can laugh at ourselves.
Exactly. That authenticity is so important, especially in podcasts. People want to connect with real people.
Okay, I'm getting it. So it's the whole package, not just the jokes themselves.
It's everything together. Okay, let's go back to those segments, like news you can't use and pet corner.
All right. Why do you think they chose those specific themes?
I think it's strategic. News is something we all connect with, and they make it funny.
Yeah.
And who doesn't love a good pet story, right? It's a recipe for success.
But there are tons of podcasts about news and pets. What makes the Giggle Factory stand out?
It's all about their personalities and how they mix that polished humor with spontaneous banter. It's like they found this perfect balance that keeps you entertained and wanting more.
Okay, so they've created their own little world of comedy.
Exactly. Now, here's a thought. Could this podcast work outside of podcasting, like on TV or a stage show?
That's a good question. I don't know, maybe.
It's the intimacy of the podcast that really makes it special.
Right.
It's like they're inviting you into their living room to hang out and laugh.
Yeah, I see that.
You could try to adapt it for TV or stage, but it wouldn't be the same.
So the format itself is part of the humor.
That's what I'm saying. Podcasts allow for this casual conversational comedy that feels really personal.
It's like eavesdropping on a funny conversation between friends.
Right. And that connection is so important these days. We're all bombarded with information constantly.
It's true.
The Giggle Factory offers a break from that. It's a chance to disconnect and just laugh.
But we've talked about how they also touch on deeper topics like social anxiety.
Yeah.
It's not just mindless fun. There's some depth there.
Absolutely. They address relatable themes, anxieties we all have about life, but they do it with a light touch. You're thinking while you're chuckling.
It's like they're sneaking in some brain food disguised as candy.
Love that analogy. That's what makes them so great. They're smart and funny at the same time.
Okay, you've convinced me. I'm subscribing.
Yeah.
But why should our listener care? There are so many comedy podcasts out there.
Because sometimes you need a break from seriousness. The Giggle Factory reminds you to let go, embrace the absurd.
Yeah.
It's a celebration of humor, and we could all use a bit more of that.
I agree. But it's not just about escaping reality, is it? It's about finding the humor in it.
You got it.
Yeah.
The Giggle Factory shows us that laughter can be a tool.
A tool for what?
For dealing with stress, connecting with people, finding meaning when things feel meaningless.
So they're giving us a toolkit for life, one joke at a time.
That's a great way to put it. And who wouldn't want giant ducks and tiny horses in their toolkit?
Okay, I'm sold. But what's the biggest takeaway from this deep dive?
Humor is more than just entertainment. It connects us, helps us cope, reminds us that even when things are tough, we can still find a reason to laugh. And the Giggle Factory does that masterfully.
We've really gotten to know the Giggle Factory inside and out.
Yeah, we have.
I almost feel like Chuck and Mabel are my friends now.
It's like they invite you in, make you feel like part of the joke.
But there's so much more to it than just being funny. We talked about structure, timing, their chemistry.
It's like there's a whole science to making a comedy podcast work.
And it's more than just telling jokes, right? You have to keep people listening, make them want to come back for more.
Absolutely. You need that connection, that emotional hook.
It's like they've built a world where dogs are mayors and parrots sing pop songs.
A world with its own rules, its own logic, all built on humor.
Exactly. And in that world, they can do anything. Talk about the news, tell crazy stories, even get into serious topics.
Right, but always with a lighthearted touch. Like
Okay.
they're winking at you, saying, hey, we're all in this together.
We focused on this one episode, but is it typical of their style? Will our listener find this same kind of humor in other episodes?
From what I've heard, yeah, they've definitely got their own thing going on. But they also try new things, bring on guests, even get a bit serious sometimes.
So they mix it up.
Yeah, you got to keep things fresh, keep the audience on their toes, keep them laughing.
We've talked about how they make it funny, but why do you think the Giggle Factory is so popular? What's the appeal?
I think people crave connection and laughter, especially these days.
Yeah.
The world can feel so overwhelming sometimes. Humor gives you a break, a way to cope with stress.
It makes me think about how I use humor. It's like a defense mechanism for me,
Oh, yeah.
a way to deflect awkwardness, lighten the mood. Do you think everyone does that?
It's pretty common, I think. Humor helps us deal with tough emotions, find the funny side of things.
It's like looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. But instead of changing what you see, it changes how you feel.
Perfect analogy. You're not ignoring the problem, you're just choosing to laugh at it.
So the Giggle Factory is like a survival guide for dealing with the craziness of life.
In a way, yes.
Yeah.
They show us that we can laugh at anything, even ourselves.
And that it's okay to do that.
It's more than okay. It's healthy. It reminds us that we're not alone. We all go through this stuff.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into socks, snails, and suspicious sandwiches, what's the one thing you want our listener to remember?
I want them to remember that laughter is powerful. It connects us, heals us, helps us get through tough times.
Yeah.
It's a vital part of being human. So find what makes you laugh, whether it's a silly podcast, a funny animal video, or just a good joke.
Embrace the silliness.
Exactly. And if you're looking for a place to start, check out the Giggle Factory. You won't be disappointed.
Couldn't agree more. So until next time, keep laughing, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the things that make you curious.